But the best thing to do with these, assuming you're not starving, option number 4 would be to use these to improve your... What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a wonderful day. It is Friday, February 7th here in South Georgia, and on today's video I'm going to show you something you can do with these old plant leaves here that's going to really help out your garden, especially for those of you that tend to have a lot of disease problems. So not all of you, but I would guess a good many of you are kind of in the same situation we're in right now. You've got a lot of cool season veggies that are finishing up, or maybe they're already finished and you're getting ready to plant some warm season veggies. So you're either trying to clean up after these cool season veggies, or you're finishing harvesting some of these cool season veggies as you prepare for more warm season crops. And since we need to get rid of a lot of those cool season plants that we've already harvested so we can make room for warm season stuff, what do we do with those cool season plants? That's what I'm going to show you today. But first, we need to do a little bit of harvesting ourselves. So although we've harvested most of our cabbage, still got a few heads here that need cutting. That one there looks good, and then we've got several down here that are ready to harvest. Got some beautiful white cauliflower that we need to harvest, and even some purple cauliflower. And I think I'll scavenge some of these broccoli side shoots before we get rid of these plants. So let me gather these groceries real quick and then we'll talk about what we should do with these plants now that they've been harvested. Alright, so we got us a nice little basket of groceries there to enjoy over the next couple weeks. Several heads of cabbage, cauliflower, and a little sack of broccoli side shoots that'll make a nice snack. But now, what do we do with all these plants left here? Because I need to plant some taters here in just about a week and a half. So let's kind of go through our options here. Number one, we could certainly eat these leaves. These outer cabbage leaves right here would be really, really tasty. It might take them a little longer to cook down than the leaves on the inside of the head, but certainly good eating here. And these broccoli leaves aren't that bad. Now the cauliflower leaves, you can eat them, but they're not that great in my opinion. I guess if you're hungry enough though, have at it. And then option number 2, we could compost these plants. We could throw them in our geo bins over there by the barn and just let them naturally break down and eventually use the byproduct to feed our garden. And then option number 3, we could simply feed these to our chickens. I'm sure they would really enjoy them, and it might save us a little money on chicken food over the next couple weeks. But the best thing to do with these, assuming you're not starving, option number 4 would be to use these to improve your garden soil through a little process we call biofumigation. So we've talked about biofumigation quite a bit on this channel over the years. How you can take a bed of mustard greens like this, or even an in-ground plot full of mustard greens, and incorporate these into the soil. And when you chop and incorporate those mustard greens into the soil, they release these chemical compounds called glucosinolates, which can really help you with soil-borne pests and diseases, especially root knot nematodes. And there are several different types of mustard you can use for this biofumigation process. The spicier the mustard, the more glucosinolates it has, the more effective it will probably be at biofumigating your soil. But mustard isn't the only plant that contains these compounds. Any brassica is going to contain some level of glucosinolates. So we can get the same effect from broccoli leaves, cabbage leaves, cauliflower leaves, collard leaves. A lot of options out there that you probably already have growing in your garden. So instead of composting these plants or simply feeding them to our chickens, we can incorporate them into our soil, which is really going to help us out with some of these soil-borne pests. Now in the past we have shown how to do this with a rototiller on an in-ground garden plot that had a nice mustard cover crop on it. And we have also shown how to do it in a raised bed with a simple garden fork, just kind of chopping and flipping that mustard vegetation into the soil of the raised bed. But in this case, with these cabbage, these broccoli, and these cauliflower plants, they're not as tender as mustard plants. So we might have to do this a little bit different because those stalks can be a little tough. So I'll give you a few ideas how you could do this, and as we're going through these, you might come up with an even better idea of how to execute this in your garden. So if you've got a mower that can actually chop and drop this stuff as opposed to just blowing it all over the place, if you can chop it and drop it in place, that would be wonderful for your garden. So if we could just mulch all this up right where it is and have all those brassica leaf pieces on top of this soil right here, it would be great. But maybe you don't have a mower that can do all that. Maybe you're working with a much smaller scale. You could simply harvest all those leaves, put them in a wheelbarrow, trash can, a bucket, figure out some way to chop them up. Doesn't have to be super fine. Just chop them up so those compounds get released, and then spread that over your in-ground garden or even a raised bed. And you could incorporate those leaf pieces into the soil if you wanted to, or you could simply just put them on top, kind of like a mulch layer there if you need some additional weed suppression. So you don't have to till it into the soil. Yes, tilling it into the soil will give you more immediate biofumigation effects, but just putting it on top of the soil will help as well. It's more of a slow effect than it is an immediate effect, but either way, you're getting the benefits of those glucosinolates inside those brassica leaves. But what if you don't like any of those options already provided? Maybe you don't want to fool with chopping or mowing this stuff, but you still want some of those nice biofumigation effects. You could do something as simple as this right here. Now this is a lot easier to do with cabbage leaves than it is broccoli leaves, but you get the point. Just lay those leaves on top of your bed, making sure there's not an inch of exposed soil down there. Nice little natural mulch that's also going to kill some of the bad guys in your soil. And once you've got all those cabbage leaves in a good spot, take your loppers and cut those cabbage plants right at soil level. Don't pull them up if you don't have to. In this case, I'm going to have a tater row right there and right there on both sides of where this cabbage row was, so I don't really need to pull these plants up. Leaving those roots there is going to do wonders for the soil, and they're not going to get in my way. And yesterday when I was out here doing a little weeding, I noticed that the feeder roots from these plants are stretching way out here to the middles between these rows, so I want to leave all that good biology there if I can. Now it's very important to note here, this biofumigation process, incorporating these brassicas into your soil or even laying them on top of your soil, not only does it help with soil-borne pests, but it can also suppress weeds and other vegetative growth. And that means you got to be careful, especially if you're incorporating this stuff into your soil with a tiller or even hand tools. You got to be careful to wait at least a couple weeks after incorporation before you try to plant something, because your germination rates might not be that great. So if you're incorporating it, wait on that biofumigation process to kind of work itself out there, and then a few weeks later plant your seeds or whatever you're going to be putting in the ground. Maybe not a huge deal if you're putting in transplants or maybe even something like taters, but if you're direct seeding, you don't want the biofumigation process that's still going on to inhibit any of your seed germination. And this whole biofumigation process, however you choose to do it, is really, really good to do before planting potatoes. One of the reasons I think we have a decent potato harvest every single year is that we always plant potatoes behind some type of brassica, whether it be a mustard cover crop, mustard that we've been eating, or brassicas like the broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower here. We always plant our taters behind brassicas because brassicas are giving us those great biofumigate benefits, and as a result we usually don't have hardly any pest issues on our taters. So if you're walking around your garden figuring out where am I going to plant my taters this year, if you've got some old broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage plants, that would be the perfect spot. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and let me know in the comments below if you've got other good ideas on how to incorporate these brassica leaves into your soil for biofumigation purposes. And if you want to see this done on a slightly larger scale with a mustard cover crop, watch this video right here and we'll go into more of the science of how this all works. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.